Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing yet another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from Japan, Japanese language English subs, released in the year 1997, directed by Shinya Sakamoto, and this film is called Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer. So Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer is about a young man who appears to be harmless enough. He's a family man, he's got a wife and a young son, but what he doesn't realise is that he's got the attention of an underground cult that are obsessed with creating the ultimate weapon. And the ultimate weapon in their eyes is combining machinery with human flesh. And so this guy is unknowingly a test subject, and so he's about to be put through an absolute nightmare. So this group send out two individuals to try and track him down and get his attention, and these two individuals end up killing this man's young son. But what the group didn't realise is that this seemingly harmless man has something inside him that comes out to the surface when he's angry, and now this group is going to get a lot more than they bargained for as this man goes on a quest for revenge. And so whether or not he gets it is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer. I was bitterly disappointed with this movie. I can sum this film up the best way to say that this is just a cash grab. This is repetition, and exercise in repetition, but unfortunately repetition of a much lower standard. So Tetsuo the Iron Man was made in the 80s. It was a black and white experimental film, and I thought that was very nightmarish. Just the black and white and the imagery combined, and the soundtrack, it was very, just really unnerving. And it went for 60 minutes, and so the problems that the movie had didn't allow it enough time to really focus on those glaring problems. So that was something that burned in my memory. I remembered that 2 years ago I watched it, and I don't need to revisit it to actually remember what went on. So it's one of those movies that's just everlasting, and so for that I can appreciate the existence of that movie in the Asian Extreme arena. But coming into Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer, I was wondering how it was going to evolve the story, and I knew that this movie had more of a story than the first one, so maybe it'll evolve the lore of Tetsuo and make the first film actually expand into something more. So it had much more of a story in this film, and it was in color. And so unfortunately the problems start with the fact that it is in color, and so the Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer loses all the effect that Tetsuo the Iron Man had in that black and white, the nightmarish feel. This movie feels a lot more watered down, and it has a story, but unfortunately it doesn't concentrate on that story, and it doesn't concentrate on the characters. So the experimental value that Tetsuo had, I could excuse that because it was different, but this movie wants to go down a much more traditional path, but it fails to do so because the story is very generic, and I just didn't really get into the characters. And unfortunately for a film that goes for 80 plus minutes, it does outstay its welcome because it has enough time to get distracted by those issues. And so a 60-minute experimental film, it's over before you know it, but this movie tends to drag a lot. So if you go into a Tetsuo film wanting metal combining with flesh in a very gruesome way, that's exactly what you're going to get, but unfortunately it's repetition. It's stuff that you've seen before, but unfortunately it's not as good. So you have a character, a man who's a family man. I didn't really connect to his plight when his young son was killed. I didn't feel any emotion because it just doesn't focus on that. It wants to be that crazy Tetsuo film, but unfortunately it's disguising itself as a generic horror film to give it an excuse just to cash in off the name. So I was very bored. I just thought as though there were some really insane moments, but again, you've seen all the insane moments in Tetsuo the Iron Man. Tetsuo the Iron Man basically sums up what Japanese extreme cinema is, just craziness with a capital C. And whereas this movie, it was more of the same sort of thing. And so what is Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer bringing that's new to the table? And unfortunately the answer to that is nothing. I just felt as though it was a really lackluster experience. As I said, the color really drained out the effect that Tetsuo the Iron Man had, and I just thought as though there was a jumbled mess. It was a story and characters put into the experience just to disguise it, just to give it a reason to exist, and to try and distract the viewer from really knowing what the true motive of this movie was, which is basically just cash in money off the people who really like the first films. And it's just basically regurgitating things that I've seen already. So overall, this was a really mediocre experience. If you like Tetsuo the Iron Man and you just want basically a different sort of version, but a much more boring version, then this is for you. But if you want something else that's going to expand and evolve the story, this is definitely not for you. So overall, I was really disappointed. I'm only going to give this one star. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.